Alexander Mouldovan, who is a serial entrepreneur, and he's got a great talk on the future. Alexander? Thank you.
Hello. I'm Alexander Mouldovan. I am an entrepreneur and an investor. My last company, Crowd Factory, I bootstrapped from my kitchen to $2 million in revenue. And when 2008 came around, I had about 20 people, and I felt like that was a good time to go raise venture capital. So in December of 2008, we closed a $5 million round. That was good times. That was like, the economy was in free fall, and we got venture capital closed. Pretty fun. We raised a total of $12 million, and we were acquired by Marketo. And I ran product there for about a year, and all the way through our IPO in May. It's a bit over $1 billion market cap right now, and Marketo's my second IPO. As an investor, I've had some great exits. Proud to say that I've sold some companies through investments or building them to companies like Salesforce and Sony, Philips, Intel, SanDisk. Pretty proud of that. But all my life, I've been fascinated with the way that things work. So technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. What can that mean? How can something be none of the above? When I first had that, it really stuck with me. And as I built products over time, and I studied how technology evolves and how markets change, I wondered about the impact of technology. I wanted to understand the meaning of all the changes that we're witnessing on a daily basis, and that brought me to my intention, to the why. Sometimes we create an outcome intentionally. Other times, in spite of our best intentions, we are unable to prevent an outcome. Some innovations, core to our very activities as human beings, have a really interesting relationship with intention. Take antibiotics. So, antibiotics were discovered entirely by accident. Although we were looking for it, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin when he noticed that he left a petri dish out uncovered overnight, and it developed a mold infection, essentially. And around that colony of mold, there was a ring where the bacteria wasn't growing, and that's how we discovered antibiotics. And when we distilled that and used that in human beings as a concentrate, we were actually able to prevent infections. Before this, when you had an infection, it meant you had a brush with death. Now, surgeons can open up a heart and perform very delicate repairs with a near certain expectation of a successful outcome. That's pretty amazing. So hospitals, surgery, dentistry all rely on the antibiotic to defend against these life-threatening conditions, and pretty excellent results. Here's another one. The happy accident of Percy Spencer inventing the microwave. He was researching combat targeting systems using radio tubes when he noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket started melting. So what did he do? He put an egg in front of the device. It exploded. And then he went to a steel container and put popcorn kernels in there, and we had the first microwave popcorn. And now microwaves exist in nearly every kitchen, home, and food production facility. But some of the outcomes are not so favorable. So if we look at like the Industrial Revolution and combustion-powered automobiles, we've got great efficiencies that came out of that. So transportation, production, we've reshaped entire economies this way. But there are byproducts. There are side effects. When you scale up the automotive industry and millions of people have cars and rely on them every day, you get traffic jams, or worse, you get accidents and injuries. And then there's pollution. And emissions deplete the outer layers of the atmosphere, and that reflects the sun. And that leads to global climate change. This is pretty serious stuff. If you go and scale up powered boats for fishing, we get so good at fishing that we've nearly emptied the seas of fish. What are we going to eat? These are serious stresses on the global ecosystem, which we depend on for food and air and water, and it's all connected. We don't know for certain what the effects of those changes are going to be, but there's real concern that they're not going to be good. Okay, 1908, Ford introduced the Model T. Consumers could buy, they could own their own motor vehicles and drive anywhere they wanted. This is a revolution. And even though accidents and pollution started occurring right away, it took us years to really start paying attention to the effects. It was not until 70 years later, 70 years, that Ford introduced cars with airbags, which drastically reduced injury. And it was nearly 100 years later before we started reducing emissions and cleaning up chemical waste produced by all these industries. This is partly because we were so focused on how we were building rather than looking at all the downstream effects. But scale can also help you. So let's talk about big data for a second. One way we're beginning to address the undesirable effects is actually big data. Big data is a collection of huge sets of data so that we can sift through the data and start to make sense out of it, watch for patterns. A simple example is traffic lights. Everybody's been in a traffic jam, but if you can optimize the way the traffic lights are actually real-time, tune them to the needs of the traffic system, you can reduce that waiting at traffic lights, ease traffic congestion, and even reduce accidents and wasted fuel. So this is a great advance. Big data also helps doctors to spot a rare disease more accurately and make diagnoses better. And big data also, hey, does anybody have a Tesla? Anybody own a Tesla? Show of hands. I see one. Not that many. Huh. Does anybody want a Tesla? I do. All right, there we go. OK, that's what I thought. That is an absolutely beautiful car. So Elon Musk is absolutely revolutionizing how we drive cars and energy. And the amazing thing he's done with the car is that the amount of emissions from the car is zero. Zero. This is going to be the first successful car that does not produce waste. But that's not enough for him. He put people first. I love this. So the NHTSA, that's our Highway and Traffic Safety Administration, has a 5-star rating system for car safety. That wasn't enough. He tested the Tesla to make sure that it would withstand a crash from absolutely any angle, far more than the minimum requirements. So he didn't just go for the minimum, he raised the bar, and that is setting a new standard. It's so much safer than a gas-powered vehicle. He's anticipated the challenges, and he refused to ship the car until it protected human beings properly. It's pretty powerful to me. So, the amount of time that passed between the release of the car, the innovation, and the solution to the possible consequence, injuries or accidents, again, zero. No time. Not 70 years, not 100 times, zero. The problem was solved before we ever saw the car on the road. And the success is there too. He's gaining market share. Tesla's probably one of the most fastest growing, most popular cars out there. And the number of fatalities is 0. 0 for 3. I love it. So this is a driven and successful pursuit of excellence and a better world, and it's truly inspiring. Let's talk about the internet for a second. So originally, the internet was developed as a way to ensure that we could communicate after a nuclear attack. So DARPA, defense. And it's gotten so broad at this point, you'd probably need a whole conference to figure out what it all means. Maybe somebody can make one of those. Today, the web serves as the foundation of nearly all business. So we have open protocols powering supply systems and all running on the web, and all of modern commerce depends on the web. And the innovation that springs from this defense project is even bigger. It's possibly too big to comprehend. But what is clear is this. Businesses that use the web and software effectively are going to succeed, and they have a clear advantage over those that do not. So a system designed for defense now powers modern business, all of it. OK, so cellular communications led to smartphones, and now we communicate with each other all the time. I see a couple people checking smartphones. This is normal behavior. We'll talk about whether it's healthy or not. We can SMS each other. We can Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook, Twitter. It's getting a little bewildering, isn't it? With distributed communications like this, we're no longer dependent on a central server, and we can actually have conversations that go around a government that's trying to shut down communications. So censorship is not going to stop the voice of the citizen. This is huge. So we can expose injustices even under these conditions, And we can protest against the government, like we saw in Turkey and Egypt. Again, DARPA, the defense agency, they didn't have citizen uprisings in mind when they designed the system that we now know as the internet. So they're unintentionally helping to spread accountability and the will of the people. A side effect of pervasive smartphones is constant communication. Again, same people on the smartphones. Think about this for a second. So what we're seeing is all these notifications and these text messages and checking our status updates, information overload. I want a show of hands. How many people know what TLDR means? 1, 2. Okay, about 20, 30. Pretty good. For the rest of us, stands for too long, didn't read. Too long, didn't read. We needed an abbreviation because writing the words too long, didn't read took too long. This is ridiculous. This is how short our attention spans are. And this is the way of the world. We're interrupted constantly. Any skill that requires concentration is losing the battle to continuous partial attention. The average person checks their phone about 150 times a day. What kind of world are we creating like this? Well, this is clear. Income is tied to the ability to focus. If you can't pay attention, and we used to call this willpower, if you don't have cognitive control, we can actually correlate. Those kids that have cognitive control later have higher incomes. And that's a better correlation than test scores and IQ. So there's the real challenge. Now let's talk about the social web. Okay, so this is a layer on top of the internet. Facebook, Twitter, Yelp. The implications of Yelp and TripAdvisor is that businesses are now accountable. There's a feedback loop. If something goes wrong, it's out here for everyone to see and influences every future interaction with their customers. And so fighting bad reviews may not be the best path to success. Instead, make your business better, because that's what your competitors are doing. They're outdoing you, so get on the program and keep moving. So what about our intentions? Education can benefit. If you think about it, we're no longer limited to having the best teachers available for every single classroom in the world. No, now we can move education along at the pace of the interest of the student. And if she has special needs, no problem. And we adjust to those abilities very quickly. So now everybody's going to have access. They can have as rich an education as they can imagine, as they desire. I want to see that world. And crime. What is the place of crime in this world? Is it going to make any sense to commit a crime when there's surveillance everywhere and drones with cameras? You know you're going to get caught. Why would you even, your incentive to go and steal or commit a crime, it gets reduced if you know that the outcome is you're going to be punished and sentenced. So privacy is another consideration now that we have all of these information devices out there monitoring us at all times in every way. And drone cams, that's going to be pretty interesting. So what is private? And what is information that belongs to us? And what are the exceptions to that? This is a question that this generation is going to answer. We are getting a lot better at building robots now. And what does that mean for health? Well, what if we could help the elderly and allow them to remain independent longer? What if we could detect a fall or a health event as it occurs? Or what if we even predicted it and stopped it in action, prevented? That's another, if you add big data in it, that's another huge possible innovation. And we've got, what if the actions in Egypt and in Turkey were just the beginning, and governments were suddenly truly accountable to the citizens, and we could vote and truly shape the way our governments actually ruled and produced legislation? What if, I love this thought, what if the ability to cover up, because now everything is known, is no longer there? And politicians or leaders who have integrity are the ones who emerge, and they're actually pushing for what the societies need. So a thought for you. Everyone in this room is so lucky. We're very fortunate. We have gifts, we have access to financial resources, skills, connections, and it may not feel like it's anything special because we live in it every day, but it's extraordinary. So what are you going to do with this privilege? We are in a position to influence and shape the world. And never before has innovation moved at quite this pace. So we're like riding waves and creating waves like surfers at the same time. Well, my question to you is this. Are we working hard enough to know ourselves and what's truly important to us? Are we choosing problems to solve that are going to leave the kind of mark on history that we're proud of? So I ask you, what is your intention? What do you want to create? I ask you to deeply connect to what matters to you and live your life and create the world that you want to live in every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.